Alrighty, so week 2, learn together. Again, I'm recording this before the start of the semester to give those who are working ahead a little bit some additional content. And for those of you working at the due date, here it is. So one thing I want to say before we get into talking about what it is I want you to do is the concept of a learn together, right? So the learn togethers are where we're going to take, and I mentioned this before, what you've learned in the Udemy course, what you've learned coding along, and give you an experience, right, to extend that. So the key to this work, and I haven't put it here, but I want to chat about it just for a minute, is that it's really important that you attempt this work without there's going to be actually in part 2, there's 2 steps. In the steps 2, I will say, it's okay to Google it. But in step 1, right, really attempt this on your own. And I'm going to set up this discussion board so that until you reply with hopefully a link to your own code, which is why you need to do this, that you won't be able to see other people's links yet. Now, I do that just to give you encouragement, because the thing about this class and about any coding class is that you really need to give yourself time to hear somebody's requirements. And I'm actually going to, in addition to writing them, I'm going to show you what I want you to do. But in order to take somebody's requirements and to create code that accomplishes that requirement, it's really an important piece that you see how well this lecture code along has really, how well you've gotten that, right? Because the truth is, everything, I think, except for maybe 1 or 2 things that I used in my code examples, is in here. So it wasn't as if there was anything new. It was really just the process of hearing the requirements and then writing code to accomplish that to the best of my ability. Now, the flip side of this is that this is not intended to take you hours upon hours. Okay, but if you do have a little time and you can give it, I'm just going to tell you that the reason I love the Learn Together concepts are, first, it really gives you a chance to see how well you've learned it. I've already said that, but also to prepare for those 3 times a semester that you're going to have to write code based on your own concepts, like your own ideas, and create that in code. So these are processes, hopefully exercises, to help you do that. Okay? Hopefully that's enough. So again, please attempt this on your own. Again, I'm going to talk about step 1 and step 2. And then, write your code, push it out. That's the other thing. So the other thing about this is that it is often really intimidating for those new to coding to share their code. And I can tell you that this is normal. We all have felt this way, okay? But the sooner you do it, the easier each time will become. And it really gives you a sense of, after you've done it, that it's not as bad as you thought it was, right? And it's really okay to ask questions. This is a great opportunity to come to it's probably my Wednesday night office hour, which probably you've heard by now, to talk about this, right? Because again, what I want you to do is hear what I want you to create, attempt to create it on your own. If on step 2 you need some extra help, go find it. But you're going to have to integrate this code that you're going to find into code that you've already written. Now, let's go through this. So in your public repo, so we're changing repos now. So when we were doing the code alongs, we were in the private. Now we're in the public because we want everyone to see code that you've and I have written. So I want you to create a directory called S3, and in there create a new file called interval.io. So interval, right? So this starting number, and then it's going to go, and this is step 2, you write code that takes input from the user for a starting value and an ending value. So you have 2 inputs here. Everything that we've seen up until now is 1. So it shouldn't be that hard to figure out how to do 2. You already know how to do 1, right? Now check. So you need to do a little validation, which we've learned here, to see if the starting value is larger than the ending value, because it can't be. If we're going to count, we're going to iterate through those numbers. It can't be. And then give the user output for that condition. If the starting value is less than the ending value, then write code that outputs the values starting with the starting value and ending with the ending value. So let me just show you this because maybe it'll help. So I have written both files, and I'll talk about the second one in a minute. I've moved to my public repo here. Okay. And so I'm in my directory already. I showed you more about that last time. So the first thing I'm going to do is run my interval, right? So I gave some, I actually probably will, by the time you see this, I've probably rewritten it a couple times because I just wrote enough to make it work and for me to be able to record this so that we could then work on it together. So provide me with a starting number, integers only, right? So obviously I could code for that, but at this stage, giving the user, hoping they give you the right thing. We can talk about later how you should never assume the user gives you good input. That's a different topic. So let's say I start with 10 and then provide me an ending number. And actually in this case, we're not outputting prime. I'll change that. So let's say 20, right? So in this case, if it starts, right? So 20 was, and I actually need to put a little content showing there. So 10, and it counts all the way to 20. Now, this is not required, but I'm just showing you what I did is I put it because I knew I'd want to run it multiple times. I put it to where if I wanted to run it again, I could. Yours doesn't have to do this. I'm just giving you examples. Okay, so if I wanted to run again, right? So let's say 40 and then 43. Cool, right? So again, there's a couple things here I need to fix, but I think you get the general idea. So you're getting input. I'm not going to show you the code. Again, I want you to do it on your own. Because remember, you can ultimately see my code, but if you want to get good at coding, you have to first understand the requirements and then write code that accomplishes that. It may not be perfect. Trust me, it won't be the first couple of times you write it, right? But get this working, right? And then take your code, right? So you can create a new file. I called mine prime IO. Now I put, and actually I'm going to go ahead and rename this one. I'm going to call it interval IO. So input output, right? So the reason I'm putting the IO in there is that we're getting input, we're creating output. And then prime IO, let's just see what that does. I'm actually going to stop. I'm actually going to say no here. And now I'm going to run, have it on my list. Actually, there it is. Okay, so now if I start at 5 and I end at 15, it's going to output the prime numbers. Right? So I'm going to run it again, but if I output, let's see if this works. I thought I had tested for this condition, but if I put starting 10 and I end at 3, I get the message starting number needs to be greater than the ending number, right? So that's a condition, and I've also checked on that for my interval IO. Okay, so that's the piece here. I didn't demonstrate it when I did the first one. So take your code, don't read on step 2, take your code, copy it into your new file, and now take time, and this is again key, right? Take time to think about, how to determine if a number is prime. And if you needed some help, which by the way I did, I spent a little time. I noticed that I typed determine wrong here, right? So I'll fix my link. So, you don't have to spend a lot of time here, but if you need a little help on reviewing how to determine what a prime number is, or how to determine if a number is prime, right? So then this, I want you to refactor. Refactor means take the code that you've already written and make it do something different. Refactor this code that was just outputting the interval numbers from starting to ending to actually only outputting if they're prime numbers, right? Now, again, this is a process of first understanding how to determine what a prime number is, and then figuring out how to write code for it, depending on how much math you've had. And again, I had to look this up too, right? And understand it. So, if you spend some time there and you're like, I understand the concept of prime real, but I don't know how to write the code, that's okay too. Because there are a lot of examples out there on the web for Python code that determines, if a number is prime. So what you'd have to do in this case is take your code here and then just copy and paste into your new file the part of the code that you got from the web that does the determining if it's prime or not. So first, I'm giving you the experience of thinking about how to approach a problem, right? You could definitely, there's many ways to do this, but if you find that, you spend, and again, give yourself, because the thing is, you're building this muscle in your brain and in your muscle memory of writing code. So it's okay, right? And I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to, based on the kinds of programming experience people have in this class, you're going to see a large variety of output. It's just normal. Okay, so once you're ready to share your code, push your code to GitHub and provide us a link to your files, okay? So unlike the code together where I have you give me a link to your commits, give me a link to your files here, okay? Just that way we can look at your code when we're ready, right? And again, you can't see the replies until you can't see other people's posts or mine until you actually reply. And now I understand you could also circumvent this and do just put anything in there, but that's not the intent. And I'm going to tell you right now, that kind of trying to get around the system won't help you learn to code. It's this process of learning something and then turning around and trying to create something that will create in you, help you grow that skill. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. You also need to write one paragraph about your experience and then reply to at least 2 of your fellow classmates' posts, right? It's really good. I'm just going to end with this. It is really good to look at other people's code. Because the other thing is, especially for those of you, and let me just say this, because it always happens when I have students from varying examples. I have students that tend to want to write code outside of the boundaries of what we're learning. And I here's my general thought on this, is I want you to write code based on the code that we're learning in this section, mostly because it gives people that are new here examples, right? It gives them, and I'm telling you, the ability to read code is the ability to write code can start with the ability to read code. So can you look at somebody's code and know what it's doing? Okay. And this concept in Python, because I've come, as I've told you from other languages, of the importance of indenting, hit me when I was writing this code. Because I wrote, the reason I did this exercise, I'll just be honest, was I had found this as a code example, and I thought, well, how can I build on this code example, right? And it hit, because I wrote, then I added this part. And it was like, oh yeah, I because in other programming languages that I've written that, this has not been, this indentation part, it doesn't matter. But in Python, it's a big deal. And again, your editor is going to help you. Your editor is so good about this, and really allow it, your IDE in this case, Visual Studio Code, if that's what you're doing, will really help you. And we'll talk about that as we move forward. So that's your week 2 learn together. Talk to you soon. Bye.